pretty minor.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's start off. So first objection, price. Now this is an interesting objection, right? Your offer is too low, or I won't go any lower.
Right.
So talk to me about the price objection.
Yeah, that's and it's the one we got most frequently. And we say 5, there are various aspects of it, like, oh, that's too low, or I would never accept that. All different variations of price.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing you want to do when you're hearing an objection, and especially as you're running a sales process, is you want to have, before you even get to that situation, it makes sense to have already been prepared for what you think their objections are likely to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say, if you do the process right, price is realistically the only thing they should really get any objection on, theoretically, because the way you present everything else is often, you can deal with the objection before they even encounter it. So when it comes to the offer is too low, something I always like to think about of an objection is that that's the prospect, the homeowner in this case, is raising a shield. They're holding a shield up saying, I want to stop the sales process. I'm putting a shield in front of you, and now we have to stop. And most sales training says, oh, they raise a shield, hit the shield.
Mm-hmm.
But if you hit a shield and you don't knock it out of their hand, what happens when you hit someone's shield? They dig in harder. And so that's why I always talk about validating someone's concerns and not agreeing with their concerns.
Mm-hmm.
It's really powerful, because if you go, yeah, I definitely can't, like, that's shooting yourself in the foot if you're agreeing with them.
Yeah, our offer is too low.
Yeah, our offer is too low. Okay, where do we go from here? I guess I should, it's over, right? Yeah. Versus, I totally understand why you would think that. I've heard that before. Tell me, what were you thinking, or what were you hoping to hear?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and this is the key with most objections, is that you should probably ask a question. Most sales training might be like, oh, they give you an objection. I say 3 lines, and now I can close. I can close anyone.
They're just melting in my hands.
Yeah, they're melting in my. Yeah, it's like a pickup artist, but for high ticket. I mean, it's insane. It's not real. It's fantasy.
So I think there's a few different things, right? So if you follow our process, price, not to say it's not an objection, but their reaction to your price really shouldn't be so bad, because before you make your offer, they should have told you what they're willing to accept, right? We talk about it. We call it extracting price. They should be saying the number first. I think that's step 1. Step 2 is we typically want to get someone emotional before we talk about price. Price is an issue in the absence of value, right? Like, if I see no value here, then the only thing that matters here is price. But what we know, because we've been doing this business for some time now, price, although is important, is the last important thing. So, the example I've used is, who here listening to this podcast right now lives in the cheapest house in the city? Highly unlikely, right? And so typically when you bought your house, you need a certain number of bedrooms, a certain number of bathrooms, maybe a garage, size yard, pool, whatever, proximity to a school, proximity to family. There are all sorts of considerations. And then after all those considerations are settled, the cheapest house that checks all those boxes.
Yes.
Right? And so, like, typically, if you're dealing with a homeowner who's focused solely on price, the question is, do they need more certainty? Do they need peace of mind? Do they need speed, convenience, hassle-free, whatever? Have we talked about these things and talked about how important it is to solve this problem and the consequence of not solving this problem? Yeah.
That line, that price is an important thing, but it's the last important thing.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I heard you say that is rings very true and is very profound.
Yeah.
How often do we run sales trainings where, especially people who are maybe newer in acquisitions, or like, what's the biggest thing you're encountering? The price. Homeowners don't like the price. They don't like the price. That's the thing over and over again. And the first thing, before we even get into the nuances of handling the objection, is the mindset of it's the last important thing.
Yeah.
So if that's the only thing you're hearing, you've done everything. Everything else has to be. You must be doing other things wrong. There's no other way you're running everything right. That's the only thing you're hearing.
Yeah.
In terms of running an ideal sales process.
Right.
That stood out to me about, like, buying a car. I bought a car cash not long ago, and I spent a decent amount. It wasn't an insane amount of money, but it was felt like a lot of money to me right in that check. And I was only arguing with them about price, but it was not that big of a deal. Like it really like that was the only thing I ever gave them as an objection.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is there were like 20 other variables that the car checked, and now I was
Right.
only talking about price.
Well, you needed an SUV.
I did need an SUV.
Right. So you needed an SUV because you just had you're about to have a baby.
Yes. I
Right.
had a very pregnant wife at the time.
Right.
Yeah.
You're about to have a baby. So there were certain requirements of the car.
Right.
Right. So you couldn't just go out and buy a Honda Civic.
No. In fact, we even looked at a different SUV that had too small of a back for the car seat we'd already bought. So it wasn't even just SUV. It had to be we'd already looked at a different SUV, and the back didn't fit for like the backward facing car seat. Like this car actually, it was even more criteria before we doing that they never, those salespeople shockingly never asked me about those other things. So many people miss the mark of assuming the wrong information, and therefore they go, oh, they're just so concerned about price. It's like, you don't even know any of the other things.
Right.
And if you can provide enough certainty in the other things, price really is the last important thing.
Yeah. So something that, you guys might have heard me say on a video on Instagram or whatever, right? It's like, I might summarize it like, okay, so right now it seems to me we're about $30,000, apart from what a cash buyer is willing to pay and what you're willing to accept. And, earlier in our conversation, you were saying it was really, really important for you to be there when your grandson is born in Florida. So, I mean, kind of sounds like right now, the $30,000 difference is more important than the actually being there when your grandson's born.
Very powerful.
And they're like, well, what's more important? Is it the price of being there when your grandson's being born, right? Now, obviously, tonality and everything else is going to be super important. But if you didn't ask all those questions about what's important to them in this sale, then yeah, price is the only thing that matters.
Right.
Right. But if you find out, oh, well, I need to be there for my grandson. This is the first one. This is my oldest son. This is the first grandson in our, patriarchy or whatever.
Sure.
It's a different conversation.
Yes. Another example of that might be that plenty of people listening to this podcast, I'm sure, are encountering when they're making offers on properties. If that's their approach, they're talking to landlords, people who don't own, or who don't live in that property they're calling about. They own it, but they have tenants, or it's vacant, whatever, but it's not their actual home. And so they think, oh, this person has absolutely no pain whatsoever, so how could they ever accept the offer? That might be true, but if you haven't asked them enough questions, learned enough about them, you might not have asked, like, is there anything else, if we were to get you a price that would make sense for you, did you have any other, anything else you were eyeing in the area? Because oftentimes when I've talked to, investors like yourself, they often have their ears to the ground, listening and looking for other deals. Is there maybe a multifamily deal or something that has a better return than this one single family home that you've had your eye on? And they might go, well, yeah, if I sold this, I would also, obviously I want to avoid the capital gains tax, so I would roll it into this. Gotcha. Tell me about that. And then they would tell me about that, and I would ask more questions, and then I would build up how much gain they could have from the next deal.
Right.
And then when it comes time to price, so I've already built this in before we even get to price. That's one of the keys. It's like here's this line about price. Yeah, but I built this other thing in. When it's finally time and I don't like the price. Okay, so it sounds like we're $30,000 off from what you feel is acceptable. But if we got this done, this next deal could be making you $17,000 a month. What am I missing in terms of getting this done? How much do you want to prioritize getting into that next deal so you can actually get to that $17,000 a month? Does this $30,000, would it prevent you from getting $17,000 a month? Because it sounds like in 2 months that would cover that and then some. And so that approach is like, oh, that's true. And the only objection they gave me was price. But because I extracted other things before we even got to price, I had all this ammunition available. I had all these throwing knives and everything I needed to, if we were imagining myself as a sales assistant, to get the kill, to close the deal, to succeed in that conversation, I had the tools in front of me because I'd built it in ahead of time so that when they raise the shield of price of an issue, I understand why you say that. I am curious, though, because of this other thing, it sounds like that $30,000 is what's holding you back from making $17,000 a month. And that approach totally changes. it melts the idea of price being the issue.
Right. Well, we're reminding them that they said to us there's something that was really important.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's unbelievable how much people just forget what they just said to you.
Yeah.
And if you remind them saying, you've said this, I'm not telling you this. I'm not saying, you could go invest this somewhere else.
Right.
I asked you and then reminded you. It's your own words against you. That will defeat them far more often than the idea of let me convince you of this thing.
If you want to become one of our 100 millionaires, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now.